Hello, welcome to DIY is my happy place. I'm Amy, and today I want to talk to you about how I come up with my do-it-yourself projects. A lot of times it is the craziest thing. I will walk down in a store, up and down the aisles, and I just look at things and I try to think in my mind how that could turn into something else on a really tight budget. I particularly love working with supplies I can pick up from the Dollar Tree because then I know exactly what price I'm going to be at. I also love to recycle and refurbish old things to make them new and exciting. This is a game I play all the time. I have a full-time job. When I'm at work, I'm going through my mind constantly trying to think of different things that I can make and create. So, if you'd like to see how I go about doing my little DIY projects, stick with me and let's have some fun. I'm so excited to show you how to make a bumblebee gnome. This is one of my favorite gnomes ever. So I'm going to show you this in a 5-step process. First, the first video is going to be how to make the gnome. And in order to make this gnome, I picked up a pair of gloves from the Dollar Tree. In fact, all the supplies in this gnome are picked up from the Dollar Tree. Now, the first thing I did was took one of these gloves and I wanted it to be black and yellow. And I love to be able to put color in to make that glove look like whatever color I'm working with. So I'm using a highlighter to color in the white part of this glove that's going to become the hat. And I have to say that gnome making is a little bit of an obsession for me. It is true. Now, you'll notice that there's a lot of embellishments in the background here, and I'm going to show you how to make the embellishments in a different part, and also the beehive and the pom-pom, and those are going to be in additional videos. So I'm going to post 5 videos in 5 days to show all the different steps. But today it's all about the gnome. Okay, so we're going to cut off the fingertips of each one of the fingers of this glove because we're going to use 2 of them for the mittens. We want to keep the thumb on because we need the length of the thumb in order to bind the top. So we'll set aside 2 of those, may use them on a future project, and the other fingers and the thumb, we're going to bind them all together. Now, I like to use pipe cleaners to put these together, and you want to use a pipe cleaner that is a color that will not be obnoxious with the hat. It won't show up a lot, but every once in a while you see it, so you want to pick a pipe cleaner color that goes well with your hat. And so I'm going to use a very flashy gold because I will use gold embellishments on this. And that is how you make the hat. Okay, next, my favorite sock when I'm making gnomes are these athletic men's ankle socks. They don't have any gray on them or any other colors. They just are the perfect body for the gnome. Now, there's different styles of gnomes, and I'll put some links below for different styles depending on what kind of gnome you want, but this one is going to be a very basic, simple gnome. And you want to put a little something in the bottom of the sock to weight it down so it won't get top heavy. And you can use a lot of different things. I'm using a few little rocks, and it doesn't take a lot because this is going to be a fairly small gnome, but I'm using some rocks that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. But you could put rice, you could put sand, whatever you want to use. And then this is the only part that's not from the Dollar Tree, and that is the stuffing for the inside. If you wanted to use cotton balls and have everything from the Dollar Tree, you could, but I just use old pillows. I recycle old pillows, and that's what I use for my gnomes. And I've made maybe 30 gnomes with a pillow and a half so far, so it doesn't take a lot. Now, because I know I'm going to put a skirt around this, we're not really going to see the very bottom, so it doesn't matter if I can see rocks or not. This is one reason why a lot of times if the bottom of the gnome is going to show up at all, I'll use white rice because it just you don't see it through the stocking. But I generally always put pants or skirt or something on the gnomes anyway. Now, depending on if you're going to add long legs and standing legs, you do the gnome different. This is going to be one that's just on little feet. So we're going to attach the top here, and I like to, once I get it stuffed, and you make it look kind of like the size of a potato, and then get another pipe cleaner and pipe clean the top. And you can use elastic, but sometimes the elastic will break later, and we're going to be hot gluing around it. So that's why pipe cleaners are your better choice here. So wrap it up with pipe cleaner, and then we're going to cut that top off. Now, I always cut the elastic part of the top of the sock off because I will use that as a belt in my gnomes sometimes, and there's just different things. So I try to use up every single piece and of fabric, of different things, and I just don't like to waste anything. So yeah, I'll cut that off. May or may not use it in my gnome, but it'll be available for the next one if I need it. Okay, now we're going to get some white felt, and I'm going to show you a trick that I've figured out on my own of how to make bendable arms. Now, I use these curlers from the Dollar Tree, and they do not like hot glue. If you get any hot glue on them, they just melt, and you don't want that. So this is what I do to keep the hot glue from melting my arms. I just cut off a piece of felt, and then we're going to roll the arms, and I just do 2 at a time. I just roll up the felt around the curler, and then I like to get a piece of, okay, we're going to put a dab of glue down the middle, and then I like to get a piece of plastic or something to seal the edges. I use these border stickers that I pick up from the Dollar Tree, and I use them for embellishments a lot on my gnomes, but they also are the perfect thing to use the backside of to put my glue on. So I just glue the edge of the felt and then fold that into it and kind of let the glue ooze out onto the plastic. And that way you have a perfect seam and you don't have to sew. This is absolutely a no-sew gnome. So it is sealing up the arms for the sleeves and not leaving anything to chance. Okay, now we're going to do the nose. And my favorite thing to use for the nose, I've used a lot of different things, but the styrofoam balls are my favorite. If you can use ping pong balls or golf practice balls, but styrofoam balls are my favorite. And then I've had the same package of pantyhose. I don't even know how many gnomes I've made with that. Maybe 35. And I just keep using every square inch of the pantyhose. I may have to break down and buy another package, but I'm getting to the very end of it. Now, once again, I'm going to use my pipe cleaner to seal off that nose. And then I picked up this really cute skirt, that it's a little Bumblebee skirt in the kids section at Dollar Tree. And this is actually what gave me inspiration. I saw this skirt and I thought, okay, I have to make a gnome with that skirt. It is so bright and cheery, and I love bees, and I love the colors of bright shiny bee colors. So, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut off a piece of this. Now, I want to make a few gnomes with this same skirt, and I'm going to use different parts of this fabric for embellishments for this gnome. So, again, I'm going to be careful and use every square inch of it. It's lined with a, I don't know, like a yellow mesh underneath, and I may use that mesh for something, we'll see. Now, there is elastic in it, so I'm holding tight to where the elastic is because I don't want to have to rerun the elastic through, and I do want to use the elastic for the waist on this particular one. So I'm being careful not to let the elastic pull through, and I'll cut my skirt to the width that I need, and then I'll cut off the length. Now, I will say that I tend to do more girl gnomes than male gnomes. Not anything against the male gnomes. It's just that I tend to give away my gnomes, and I have a lot more friends that are girls than guys. Not as many guys are interested in my gnomes. So that's why I tend to do a lot of girl gnomes, and I love doing braids and embellishments and all of those things. So I would guess 9 out of 10 of the gnomes that I make are girl gnomes. Now, once I cut this off, I realize, oh yeah, I have plenty of fabric left for more gnomes in the future and more embellishments. So I set that aside, and you can hem the edge if you want. And when I say hem, I'm talking about hot glue. This type of fabric doesn't necessarily fray, so it's not absolutely mandatory. But I decided I'm gonna maybe I'll put this little hem so I can see a little bit more of that yellow mesh around. So now that I have my arms cooled over there, I'm going to use the same little piece of plastic. And I like this because if I'm using a piece of paper and I get a little glue that seeps out, then the paper likes to stick to whatever, the fabric or the felt. But this plastic, it just kind of rubs off onto there and catches all the extra. And so that's why I like using these little plastic things. Now, when I'm working with really fine little parts of the hot glue, I do use those hot glue protector things you get at the Dollar Tree. They're in the craft section in the Dollar Tree. And they come in handy for things like this. I have had too many little tiny burns over the years that I don't want to do that anymore. So that is why I'm using my little pink fingertips. Okay, now we're getting close to finishing our skirt. Now, as you can see, this is a very quick and easy gnome to make. And I think that creating a bumblebee gnome, oh, I just love it. I'm so excited for how this is going to turn out. Okay, now our arms, they look like they're long, but you do want them pretty long because you want to be able to wrap them around and bend those arms and everything. So I'm just going to put a little dot of glue in the center of that fingertip that was left over from the glove, and then wrap that around my gnome arm. And that is going to be their hand. And because the very tip of that curler has plastic ends on it, you can glue the glove, the mitten, right onto the tip of that, and it doesn't melt the foam arms that I was talking about. Now our arms are getting ready, and they're bendable. I can do whatever I want with them with those curlers inside. Okay, let's put our nose on. You want to be pretty generous with your glue because the nose is going to support the weight of the hat, and so you do want that. Now, the arms, I have figured out that if you put some glue in and then you pinch them over into a flat surface, that will make it easier for gluing. And we're going to glue it right on the very top of the head of the gnome as soon as that's dried. And so that the arms, where would be the shoulders, can just kind of fold around and you don't have any glue marks there. Okay, let's go back to our little skirt that's now dried. And once again, no sew. We're just going to glue the seams together so the skirt is ready to go. Now, I will say one thing about this fabric. It does not, the wrinkles that are in the fabric do not fall out. You can't just put water on them and have them, fall out. And so you do need to iron them in advance. Okay, I picked up quite a few little stuffies during the Easter holiday that I can use for different parts of my gnomes. This particular Easter bunny, I'm going to use the arms for my braids. And I like to put just a little bit of pipe cleaner around the bottom of the arm to look like a little attachment, an elastic band, to play the part of an elastic band at the end of a braid. And that is one of the fastest, easiest ways to make braids. Now, I have picked up some different colors. Sometimes they're pink, sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're brown, they're white. You can do a lot of different colors with those little stuffies. Okay, now just going to trim my mitten up a little bit, and my arms are getting close. Okay, now we're going to put these up on the very top of the head, and you'll see that the arm is going to go down past what would be the waist of our gnome, and that's exactly where we want it. Now, it does take a little bit. You put quite a bit of glue up here. So I like to glue things and then set them aside, let them dry while I move on to the next part, so I'm not waiting on drying time. You do have to hold them in place for just long enough for it to get a hold of itself. Then you can set it aside, and I put it on that plastic again in case just a little piece of the hot glue drips down while it's cooling. And then I also glue my braids up on the top of the head so that there's no part of the braid it's all going to be up underneath the hat. Look how fast the hair was for this cute little gnome. I mean, this is the easiest way to make hair for a gnome, in my opinion. I love it so much. Okay, I want to finish telling you. Oh, okay, now this is what I'm going to do for my feet. I pick up the little hearts that are in the Crafter's Square section of Dollar Tree. And they have a little hole, and depending on how the gnome is going to sit on there, sometimes I cover that up with black paper. But in this case, I know my skirt's going to be over that little hole, and so you won't see it at all. And so I'm going to glue my gnome directly to the little heart. And those will serve as the shoes and also serve to help keep it standing up. Now here's my pom-pom, and I'm going to do another tutorial about how to make pom-poms. I've done a couple of them, but there was some issues with my editing software and the sound didn't turn out very good. But I have to tell you, pom-poms, making your own pom-poms is so easy and so perfect, and you can get any color you want, any size you want. So easy. And now that Dollar Tree has yarn, why not make your own pom-poms? So that is going to be another part of this particular series. And like I said before, there's going to be 5 parts to this gnome series, and I'll put one up every single day for the next 5 days. So make sure you check back often, and each day we'll learn a little bit more. We've got the gnome first, and then we'll move along from there. Okay, now I was going to tell you about the skirt. You do need to iron in advance, and when you iron the wrinkles out of the skirt, you definitely want to put a tea towel or something on it so that it doesn't melt the fabric, because it is very fragile fabric. And now we're going to put the glue right on our little heart, and then put our gnome right on there, and those cute little shoes will stick out underneath the skirt and hold the gnome in place so she doesn't tip over. Okay, now we've got her nice and glued. And you do want to be generous with the glue on top. You don't want the arm popping off later. Now, in the hat, I generally like to use a paper towel to fill the top part of the gnome's head, just because once I put it on, I want to be able to bend it around, and cotton's not as easy and flexible to bend around how I want in order to really form the hat and the head to look exactly how I want. So just 3 pieces or sheets of paper towel work good. And I noticed that in this particular one, the fingers were kind of catching some of the spots of the gnome, but you know, that's the beauty of paper towels. They can just swoom around. Now we're going to put the hat over half of the nose, and then you do want to glue the hat to the nose. Now this is where, if you're using a ping pong ball, it sometimes dents the ping pong ball. So that's why I prefer these styrofoam balls, because you can glue right onto the nose. Otherwise, if you're using a ping pong ball, you need to glue to the sides of the nose to keep it from denting in. Now, if you are using a ping pong ball, you can take a hairdryer to it, and that will usually pop the dent back out. Now these flowers, I'm going to show in another part of the series. How to make the flowers, how to make the bees, how to make all the little accessories that go along. And it is so fun and made with Dollar Tree items. So make sure you check out that video, and I'll also put a link below once I have all 5 parts attached or and up and running on YouTube. So all I have to say that being able to make your own flowers and bees, it's just perfect. And I like to make quite a few in advance, and then as I'm going along creating my gnome, I can see what color, what size, what really fits my fancy for that day. Now, once the hat is on, it kind of stretches out a little bit and some of the white starts showing through. So you may have to go back and redo some of the yellow, but that is all there is to it. Isn't that fantastic? I have to say, this is one of my favorite gnomes. But don't worry, there's going to be additional parts. I'm going to have a part that show how to make the bees and the flowers. I'm going to show one of how to make this beehive, all with Dollar Tree supplies. And then there's going to be a part to update you how to make the perfect pom-pom. And then the fifth part is how to make an A-frame sign out of Dollar Tree items. Thank you so much for sticking with me. It was a lot of fun today. Now, please like and share this out where you can. And don't forget to ring that bell to all so that you can get notifications when I put up new content. And I will see you again soon.